what I'm going to do is put on some clarifications to the Jubilee video I did early this morning. When I got off the video, the live stream, I had some doubts about things, questions. So I decided I'd ask my wife, because she's the agriculture expert around here. And if you want to ask me things about subway systems, rooftops, basements, elevators, I can do good. But when you want to start talking about agriculture, I'm a loser. I don't know much at all. Okay, so let's go through a few things. First of all, the changes are not going to have great impact. Okay, but they need to. Yeah, as I told you, I'm working through this. So the beginning of the year, because it's a year, Yovel year, Jubilee, oh, they're years. Yovel is a year. It appears that there's not any good reason for it to be on the 10th day of the first month. We call it a Bib. The rabbis. Okay, had a slight glitch in the network. I changed the network. Okay, so it's a year, and years start on the first day of the month of Abib. The month starting is triggered by the spotting of the new moon sliver, which my wife does for many years now. And I did it a few times with her, but I don't get out much. So, it seems that saying they entered the land on the 10th day of the first month, they didn't really have the land. They entered the land. So I'm kind of like, why is that? You know? I don't know what's up with that, you know? So she simply just said to me, well, it's a year. It's a year. It's not, now you could have a year that's not inside the regular calendar year. I grant that. But because these are timed in sequence with the Shemitah years, which we don't have any reason to believe start on the 10th day of the month, it's sort of not clicking. So let's set that starting on the 10th day of the month aside and forget it. So let's say that it starts on the first day of the month of Abib, which brings us to quite late in February and quite early in March. So if we were going to just kick at it, we'd say, oh, it's like on or about March 1st, give or take a few days. It could be give or take even a week or something, but it's not give or take a month. And I wouldn't expect it to even be a half a month, okay? So we don't need to dwell on that because we'll be spotting, God willing, we'll be spotting the new moon and calling it, right? Okay, so, all right. So you're looking at late February, early March. The next thing we need to talk about is the not so in the eighth month. Eighth year. So you have your Shemitahs, and let's jump forward. We've had our 7 Shemitahs, and we're in the 49th year. So you plant heavy duty. Well, you plant in the 6th year, okay? And that feeds you for...
It's not for you.
Huh?
The 6-year planting is not for you. You've already been given 3 years.
When did he give us the 3 years crop? In the 6th year?
Yes. So when you plant in the 6th year, that doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the
beasts and the poor. So it gives us a huge crop, a 3-year crop in the 6th year that the poor people can glean and the beasts can eat it and so forth, right? And in the 7th year, you don't work the land. And in the 8th year, you still have the food from the 6th year. I guess he makes sure it doesn't go rotten. You have the food from the 6th year to feed you in the 8th year. But you're going to run out for the 9th year. So what you do in the 9th year is you eat what you planted or sowed. Sow is to plant, S-O-W. What you sowed in the 8th year, is to feed you in the following year, the 9th year. So these guys are tripping over their own feet with what do you do about what do you call it? What do you do about the fact that you can't sow during Jubilee? Well, it's very simple. Jubilee, if you're running it with, now I'm going to make terms up. If you're running it with a 7-year Shemitah cycle, Jubilee year would be the 8th, the 49th year would be the 8th year, or the 50th, right? So it's the year after. So you can't sow in that year. So that's the exception. You don't sow in that year. Okay? So Rivka, how do they get the food for the 9th year then?
He's already proven he can give them 3 years. Why not 4 years? It's really very simple.
She says that he gave him 3 years, he could give him 4. So the chances of that makes
because this is a land Sabbath, and the only thing that is categorized as land fruit is wheat and barley. Trees come without any work. Planting barley and wheat were the work. They ate stored grains for 4 years.
Okay. So it would be store grains. She was saying that the trees don't require any work. We got a pomelo tree here. It just drops the fruit and you pick it up. That's not planting and that's not sowing. It's bending down and picking it up. It's not exactly the same thing in my book. You're not breaking the ground open, planting the seeds, putting it back, watering it. You just pick it up. And that's sort of the state of things in New Jerusalem. You're just going to eat the plants, coming from the tree of life. But back to, so he probably just gives you the extra push to carry you through that year. So you don't have to start modifying dates and stuff like that for this Jubilee year. Now, why is this blowing the trumpet in the 7th month? They call it Tishri, the rabbis, on the 10th day on Yom Kippur. Now, that only happens in a Yovel year. The other 49 years, you do not blow the trumpet on the 10th day. I believe you'd be blowing it on the 1st day of the 7th month, which is called Yom Teruah. Why are they blowing it on the 10th day of the 7th month? Well, her theory, which seems to be the best I heard yet, is because the rains will be coming. Let me elaborate. The rains could start in November, December, so they would normally, barring any biblical exceptions, in the 7th month they'd start putting seeds in the ground, called sowing, right? And you break the ground with a plow, you have your ox schlep the plow or something, and you put your seeds in, and then you put the dirt back and water it and that kind of thing, right? And they would want to get their seeds in the ground. No?
I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the dogs.
Oh, they would want to get their seeds in the ground so they're already in place when the rain starts. Now, the rain could start in October. But usually around American Thanksgiving Day, by then you usually have the rain. Although lately I've seen it change. But years past when I lived here, you'd see it around then. So they want to have everything in the ground for the rainy season. This would be the latter rain. The early rain is the spring. This is the latter rain. So they would have the advantage. They didn't have artificial irrigation. So they have the advantage of making sure their crops were good to go when the rain hit, right? So in the 10th day of the 7th month, Yom Kippur, they would blow this as a reminder to them that we're in a Jubilee year.
And they would read the Torah to reinforce it.
They would read the Torah on Yom Kippur?
Yes.
Yeah, to reinforce it, to make sure that nobody went out and started planting, a day or two later after Yom Kippur, right? So it was a reminder to them, a serious reminder, that we're not planting, okay, until the Yovel year is over. And that is basically it. So instead of looking to see the Jubilee at the 10th, instead of looking for it maybe to come as late as this year, mid March, or something like that, we'd be looking more towards very late February or very early March. So it's a slight difference. Not that, not that big a deal. We could wait that amount of time. And I still am high on this being the 70th Jubilee. For all the reasons I gave you with Zechariah 12 and all that. And then on top of all that, you could sprinkle in current events, you know, which is not the same thing as scripture, but you could look to see if it's lined up. So that seems to be wrapping up this mystery. I will take a look and see if any of these characters were able to work the timing of this by looking at some scriptures that they feel were Jubilee years. Is something with Hezekiah, I think. There's a couple of things, but a lot of them go off the Bible. They go into the Talmud, and the Talmud records when the Jubilee years were. But you can't trust the Talmud. The Talmud specifically states Yeshua was not the Messiah, was not a son of God, was not a prophet, did not rise from the dead and go up to heaven to be seated at the right hand of Jehovah, God the Father. So why do I want to listen to a bunch of guys that write books like this? Right? Now, a lot of these characters do, because they're going to say that this is a historical recording in the Talmud. Now, is it possible that the Talmud really is doing a historical? Yeah, it is, but do I know that for sure? No. Do I know they're twisting the scriptures or not? No. See, I've told you so many times, Daniel 9:24, Shavim Shavim does not mean 77 seventh. And there's so many guys that develop this to mean 490 years, and they show you this. I mean, gosh, there's all of, and I've also pointed out to you that these characters know Hebrew, and they intentionally never explain this. And I showed you there's only one translation, Smith's Literal, that did it, and that's because she self-published it, and she has plenty of other errors, but she got that one right. So the first 70, I would speculate strongly, is the 70-year Babylonian captivity, and it never says 70 years. It doesn't say 70 Shemitas, 70 Jubilees, 70 Gregorian calendar years. It doesn't say 70 nothings. 70, 70. And that, a good reason for that is the two 70s are different. The Babylonian captivity punishment was nowhere near as severe as the punishment the next time. All right? So, as I say, this is a work in progress, and I'm going to keep navigating it. And I'm going to try to tackle the history workback and see if I can make any sense of that. The only way that will really be anything solid is if the scriptures give us a very, very heavy duty, strong date for something being a Jubilee year. If it's just, guessing that this means that, it's not any good. But that's that's where I'm at with this, and I think I'm in a good place. And I think my wife nailed it. The Tishri, or the 7th month, blowing the trumpet, it just doesn't click that that's when it starts. You know, I thought maybe that's to remind them by that time they have to return the land to those that they should be returning it to and set them free. But let me ask you a question. Does it make any sense that they should keep these people as their servants and not give them their land, respectively, different categories of people, for 7 months? Is that abiding by the the Bible and the commandments regarding Yovel? It doesn't sound like it to me. It sounds like these people are problematic. And there's nothing in there that says by this time you should have already given back the land and set them free and returned them to their families. And that's not in there. So I think her explanation is pretty good. She knows that's when they're going to plant so they could catch the latter rains. And that's the reminder. I mean, that's as good of an explanation that I ever heard. Um, Now, could it be multiple explanations?
Of course.
Yeah, but it's still, how does it click that they could wait 7 months and not return the land and not set them free? That doesn't click because that would mean they're disrespecting Yovel year for 6 full months or plus 10 days, you know. Does that sound like something God wants them to do? Not at all.
Listen, if you get your land back at the beginning of the year, okay,
Yeah.
you need a reminder that you're not planting in that year. You've just been returned to your property. You've been off your property for 50 years. You need to be reminded that you're not planting.
She just came up with another good explanation, an additional one, so to speak, but related. The guys that were, you know, that were returning the land to the guy, you know, because it's going, his inheritance is going back to him as per Yovel or Jubilee year mandates or commandments. He just got he just got his land back. He may not have had it for 37 years or something, right? So he might be zealous and want to go out and start planting so he could get a good crop. So there's a reminder during this season when they would be putting the seeds in the earth or sowing seeds, right? No, 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 no. We're still in Yovel. Just wait it out, dude. See what I'm saying? So, not knowing agriculture, that didn't occur to me. Um, but I can't really find a way to say we're going to start in, you know, Tishri. I mean, seventh month. I don't know why it would start there. You see what I'm saying? I don't quite understand why it would start there. Uh, you know, I mean, you could always just say, "Oh, because they announced it then, so that's when it starts." I don't know. I mean, I think if that was the case, we would see it in Leviticus 23 and 25. We don't really see it there. Well, I mean, we do see it there in the form of the seventh month, the trumpet. So I'm going to keep searching and looking. If I see any other good stuff on this, I'll let you know. But I am going to continue to dig deeper into the um, can we go back in history with this and wrap things up into 2024 Gregorian year. Um, you know, like I said, these guys that came up with 2024 don't know beans about Bible prophecy. They don't know from the Shavim. They don't know from Zechariah 12. And, you know, they don't have the insights. So I was a little surprised they stumbled onto this. But I'm not done. So I'll keep pushing it. And I still am challenging myself about the seventh month announcement. And I don't know if there's anything else to be found out about that. It's just quite mysterious that there would be an announcement on the seventh month, but the announcement doesn't really indicate that it's the start of the Yovel, because you would be out of. Uh, I just don't get it. I got to keep digging on that. You know, there might be some hidden meaning to it, but my wife could very likely be right also. There's not really a hidden meaning. It just ties to the agriculture. So I just thought I'd give you these little tidbits that I came up with, and it doesn't monumentally change much except 10 days, what we were talking about. So, you know, as I keep digging, I'll keep coming up with more stuff. But it also appears the rabbis have screwed with this by telling you Rosh Hashanah, which is the holiday on the 10th day of the seventh month. Now, their months are all screwed up. Their years are screwed up. It's like they threw roughly 250 years off the calendar, you know, and they don't go by new moon spotting to start the month. And you could sit there and say, when is Pesach or Passover in the year 2028, and put it into um, Google, and the rabbis will tell you when it is. That is impossible by the Bible. It's just sheer impossible. You have to spot the moons. You can't do it like a farmer's almanac. There's no provision. We have an observable calendar. That's not a biblical term, but it's an accurate descriptor. You get the new moon spotted, the sliver, not the full moon, the new moon. It's a sliver. A full moon is the big round thing, you know, the man on the moon, you know. You get the new moon sliver, and that starts it, and that's actually a feast day. It's Moedim. They've done away with that. So everything they do, they're like the churches. They screw everything up royally. On purpose. Believe me, it's on purpose. Don't think it's accidental. It's on purpose. So they're S-spots. And it's just like the churches, and they mess everything up. So you can't really start digging into the Talmud with any confidence at all. You know, um, it's as stupid as going into, what is it, Google, and asking Google a question. You know, you're just going to get all kinds of differing opinions. It's stupid, you know. So basically that's what I got. Now, switching horses, as we'll call this an evening war report too. I'm getting some more reports that some of the North Korean artillery did hit on the landmass of those two islands that South Korea has. South Korea has since given them a warning / notice, stop it, giving it to North Korea. What will that do? I have no idea. My opinion is that North Korea laughs at it, but I don't have any factual information. It's part of the snare, and Hamas is still managing to get a rocket or two off here and there, but they're not common, but they go every day. And I'm thinking about this, and I'm saying, you know, if Netanyahu had the military stop all the rockets, then the courts might move on him in a more fuller fashion or a more rapid fashion, because they would see no threat from Gaza. They're not going to rush out of the tunnels in quantities of tens of thousands, because the tanks and the artillery and the planes and helicopters and everything would mow them down. They wouldn't make it to the the defense and God. Where are they going to go? I mean, it wouldn't work. So that would be the end of the threat from Gaza, and then they might move on Netanyahu. So since that's tapering off, Netanyahu, to stay out of jail, is jacking up Lebanon. And the targeted assassinations are going to have the effect. Now, Iran raised their red flag on one of their goofy mosques in Iran, which is a revenge type flag. You know? What that means is they intend to take revenge.
Yeah, but they've not taken revenge for the guy that they said they'd take revenge we killed 10 years ago.
Yeah, they did say they were going to do that for some old guy. And even though ISIS is adamantly saying we did it, they're saying Israel is complicit. And I think they're also pointing a finger at America, but not as much as Israel. And like I told you before, the Iranians accused us, or raised the red flag, I should say. They had accused us. It's not something that Israel would do, blow up a crowd of civilians. Israel's much better than that. Much better. And look at our history of doing things like this. We do things, but we go targeted for the culprits. Maybe there'd be slight collateral damage, but injuring like 150, 200 people and killing a lot over 100. I don't know if it's 150 yet or 130, but it's a lot of people, and we would never do that. That's ISIS. ISIS doesn't care. And then ISIS even came out and said that the reason they did it is because the way Iran is treating Hamas. In other words, they're treating Hamas as a disposable throwaway asset, a pawn in a chess game. So that's why they're doing it. ISIS, on the other hand, wants to have a voice that's heard, and they want to get publicity. Meanwhile, the Houthis have taken an Indian ship, which I think has a Libya flag. So, in other words, when you register a maritime merchant marine vessel, you have to register it in a country. So usually they go to countries where they can get away with using anonymous bearer share corporations or corporations owned by trusts, foundations, or lawyers, or different things to conceal ownership. And also, they don't have to pay taxes. They would just possibly pay an annual registration fee, which on a big maritime vessel might be $1,000, $1,500, or $2,000, probably less, but something like that. And when the country is registering, thousands and thousands of ships, and everybody gives them several $100 a year, it adds up. And what do? They have 4 or 5 clerks filling forms out, filing stuff, putting it in digital form. There's not much work. Mailing people registration certificates and stuff like that. So now the India has sent one of their warships over to Yemen with commandos on it to get the ship back. So India is intending to engage the Houthis quite actively. India's getting mad. You take Modi and you start hitting him in the pocketbook. He's not happy. Okay? You hit Modi in the money, he's a very unhappy camper. Now, India has a very formidable army and a navy and an air force. And I think if Modi woke up in the morning and said, I don't want Houthis on the face of the earth anymore, he could extinguish them. He could send 25 ships over there. He could send 150, 250,000 soldiers over there to just go through the place and annihilate. Easy. He's got an army the size like China. Child's play. Child's play. But Modi of India is walking solo. He doesn't want to run with the American coalition. He doesn't trust America. Now, the curious thing is he's pitting himself up against the Houthis, which are a puppet that Iran has built at the cost of hundreds of millions of dollars, or maybe even a small amount of billions. And Iran isn't very happy with these goofballs and has pretty serious intentions of slamming them. He's not happy. It's the second time they mess with his ships. Russia can pass their ships through without any issue, no surprise there. America's coalition against the Houthis has risen to 21 nations now. So if everybody kicks in, let's say an average of 2 warships, they got 42 warships. And I'm sure these warships can shoot artillery, missiles, rockets, torpedoes, assorted weapons. And that's not good news for the Houthis, but they're not scared either. Iran's not scared. They don't stop. American bases are still getting attacked in Iraq and Syria. Lebanon doesn't stop. Hamas doesn't stop. You got to understand, you're dealing with people with a martyr wish. And they're told that if they get killed for the cause, they're going to go to heaven and get the 71 virgins, whatever the recent number is. And they're going to be martyrs. And they like it. And that's what they do. So that's why they're not scared. They're not afraid to die. America hasn't really woken up to that yet. They will, but the hard way. See, if you were fighting Russia, the Russian soldiers don't think that way. If you were fighting China, I don't know what they think. Maybe they would, I don't know. And South Africa's trying to drag Israel into the International Criminal Court, filing a complaint. They have really moved ahead in terms of their anti-Israel, anti-Semitism. And they're in BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's your original 5 members of BRICS, and they've expanded to 10 members now, which some people think could very likely be the 10 horns on the beast, and I'm one of those people that thinks that's very likely. Now they're talking about getting a lot more new members, but they don't say when. So that might be something they're scheduling for, January 2025 or something like that. The Houthis have taken a new approach in the last 2 attacks. They're sending people out to steal the boats because I think they got a message that 99.9% of their missiles and drones are getting taken down now. So they cut that out, and apparently they're sneaking out in smaller boats and probably fishing type vessels and go out the port looking like fishermen, and then they present RPGs, machine guns, shoulder-fired rockets of another kind, and commandeer the ship, throw grappling hooks, whatever, climb up, take the ship over, bring it into Yemen as captors, and they got hostages now and stuff like that. The ship traffic in the Red Sea is all but stopped. China's having a fight with Iran over oil prices. Iran sells a lot of oil. Iran sells a lot of oil to China. 10% of the oil that China takes into their country comes from Iran, but they take in massive amounts of oil. It's got an insanely big population. So China is having a spat with Iran over the price of the oil. Gold is down around 2038. So the interesting thing now is that gold is holding over the $2,000 an ounce mark. It's been there for a while, 2, 3 weeks, and that's pretty much there. Some of the nations, like America and stuff, trying to shove it down again, but they're having a lot of trouble. More incidents happen, it'll go up even more, even more. We're hearing talk a lot in Israel about what happens after the war in Gaza is over. We're hearing a lot of talk that the Lebanese war is a guarantee, which I'm not that sure, but I think so. Based on Bible prophecy, I think it will, but it will happen this week, a month from now? I don't know. I don't know what Iran's going to do in terms of revenge. They may just talk about it and do nothing and come out with one of those announcements they're fond of, and that'll say, we're going to choose the time and place to get our revenge, So, what's happening, and I think it's interesting, is the proxies that Iran built up at a cost of probably billions of dollars is the Houthis, Hamas, and Lebanon. And Israel's in the process of wiping 2 of those proxies out, and America and her coalition are in the process of attacking the Houthis. So that's pretty interesting. All right, I think I've given you a good look. I'm trying to think. Well, we're still fighting in Hamas, we're still blowing tunnels up and stuff like that. We're still taking a few rockets every day from Hamas, but it's not a great amount at all. It must be the rockets and missiles and drones from Gaza would have to be down at least 90%, at least, and that's a lot. But why not nothing? See? So what else? That's it. So uh, I'm Moshe. My wife's Rivka. Please pray for our peace, safety, protection, and joy, healing of our bodies, and pray we can get the roof fixed before the rains come, please. And pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues. They be happy, healthy, and whole. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I am out.